I wonder how many of you noticed yesterday in the paper this mother symbol on the Prime Minister's shoulder. There was a photograph you did. That is, he was standing posing with the President, and this side there is this pin with mother symbol. So I thought it was a very good omen, good for him, good for the country, that he wore it on his birthday. Shows that he attaches some special value to it. We were speaking last time on the vampire of dead soldiers, people who die a sudden death, causing viruses, microbes, and mother's experience of that in Japan. She also speaks how in nature there are spirits, spirits of air, spirits of water, spirits of fire, and so on, all the elements presiding over those forces. And she speaks of the spirit of death. There is a spirit of death, but not one, many. She has had occasion to meet the spirit in France, in Japan, in India, and everywhere it was differently constituted. Obviously, in keeping with the mental beliefs, traditions, customs of the people. And this spirit always comes with a claim. She says that there is a fantastic organization between a kind of alliance between the forces of physical nature and the forces of the vital world, by which the spirit of death comes with a definite claim, 1, 2, 3, like that. And if one has the necessary strong will and the power to back it, one can turn away the spirit from where it has come. She seems, it appears, when the spirit of death came to claim someone, she said, "What do you want?" She said, "I want to take him." He said, "No, I don't want him to die, but I have a claim." Then she said, "Go elsewhere and find somebody who is ready to die." And such things happen. It may be in the neighborhood, it may be somebody, a friend, it may be an enemy, whoever it is. But it is possible to divert the spirit of death, provided you have the necessary stature, you have the necessary occult power to do that. Similarly, she speaks of her encounter with the spirit of fire in Japan. One little fire means a disaster, a calamity. For all the houses are made of wood. Because of the volcanic area, to lessen the damage, the houses are not built of stone, but of wood. And once there is a fire, series of houses fall down like a pack of cards. So once when she was observing people, she saw this spirit of fire. She said, "Why are you come here?" She said, "No, I want to start fire here." He said, "No, don't do this here. Go elsewhere." And within a short while, she heard cries and commotion in some neighboring locality where a number of houses perished due to the attack of fire. Then another notable incident that she records of her life in in Japan. She was very much interested in Buddhism. She had many references of her meeting and talking to Shakyamuni, a form of Buddha. Now, there was one person who had followed the techniques of Tibetan Buddhism and had mentally formed a being, a formation, to carry out his wishes or whatever. Call him a Mahatma, to be his companion. But then he found that that Mahatma was a very insufferable fellow. He would interfere in everything. Not this, not that, do this, don't do this. And he felt he had lost his independence. He was always followed, surveyed by this formation. And he tried his best to send him away, but he would not go. So in desperation, he approached Mother. And Mother doesn't describe what exactly she told him, the technique, but she told him how to cut the connection. And she says, it is not enough to cut the connection. He will exist independently and go on doing whatever he wants. So she said, what you have created, you must absorb back in yourself. And he followed the advice and got rid of him. This was the third remarkable incident. And before leaving, we have mentioned how she had married Richard under special circumstances. She knew who he was, a representative of the Lord of Falsehood, and she wanted to change him. Mother was always a great one for accepting challenges and trying to convert people, and she wanted to convert Richard. So, I believe 1908 or so, whatever, the date is not important, she married him, and she had difficulty. He was a strong-willed man, a brilliant intellectual. She also was strong-willed, not less of an intellectual, apart from other capacities of hers. But still, Mother's endurance and patience had no parallel. But by the time their sojourn ended in Japan, she realized that it will lead nowhere and that she would not be able to change him. So then it is recorded by her biographer. Since the 4 years came to an end with an absolute inner certitude that there was nothing to be done, that it was impossible to convert Richard, impossible in this way. There was nothing to be done. Now these are our mother's own words. So I was intensely concentrated, asking the Lord I had sworn to you to do this. I had even said, if it is necessary to descend into hell, I will descend into hell to do it. Now tell me, what must I do? Of course, the power was there. Then suddenly, everything within me became still. The entire outer being was completely immobilized. And I had a vision of the Supreme, more beautiful than that of the Gita. A vision of the Supreme. And this vision literally swept me into its arms. It turned towards the west. In other words, towards India, and offered me up. And I saw that Sri Aurobindo was at the other end. I felt it physically. I saw. My eyes were closed, but I saw. Indescribable. I felt indescribable. It was as if this vastness had reduced itself to the size of a rather immense being. It lifted me up like a wisp of straw and then offered me. Not a word, nothing else, only that. Then everything vanished. The next day, I began preparing for my return to India. That was in 1920. And as we noted, she touched China on the way to feel the atmosphere of that country. And she arrived in India. We also noted that when the ship was 2 nautical miles from Pondicherry, she felt a distinct change in the atmosphere. She saw and found that she was entering into the aura of Sri Aurobindo. And she arrived here on the 24th of April, 1920. We noted last time where she stayed and how things went on in Bayou House, automatic writing, all these. I don't repeat them. But one important incident that took place in the guest house where mother was living there, it was in 1921 December. Mother had been accompanied by a sadhika whose Indian name was Datta. I believe she was an Irish lady. And she was responsible for supervising over the cooking and things like that. That time they had a cook called Vattel. He was a difficult man who wouldn't take rebukes lightly. And Datta was supervising over him, was still more imperious. And there was once she snubbed him and he felt insulted. And he got up and he said, "Look, I will see that you people leave this place, this house," and walked away. It appears that he went straight to a Muslim magician who knew this science of black magic, and he requested him to harm this house. But then which house? So he said, that Sri Aurobindo, he's there. I don't want to go anywhere there. But then this man offered much more money to him, and then he agreed on the condition that he will not approach anywhere near some 25 meters or something like that around Sri Aurobindo. Agreed. So then very soon, perhaps within a day or so, stones started falling in the compound of the guest house. So they first thought some neighbors must be doing mischief. So all the boys went up the wall, peeped into the other compounds. No sign of anybody. But as the evening progressed, more and more stones would come. The night went off like that. The stones were falling. They could not trace from where. The next day, again when they started, the police were sent for. So the policeman came, and as he was standing, he had a gun in his hand, and he was standing, one stone crashed through his legs. He got nervous. He said, all this is the mischief of that Muslim magician. There is nothing that we can do here. And he walked away. Then, things were reported to Mother and Sri Aurobindo. They couldn't trace anywhere. They got a clue that somebody is doing this mischief. So, the cook had a small boy assistant who was not very normal, a bit of an idiot. So he was there. And the stones were hitting him. So, on Mother's instructions, the room was locked where the boy was working. But though the room was locked, though there was no window, stones would materialize there and hit him. And the stones would appear only from such a distance, not from the top. Now, how could the stones come when the windows and doors were shut? So the boy was taken and kept in another Bijoy's inmate's room. But even there the stone would hit. So then Mother said, better remove him from here and send him somewhere else. Because she found there was a nexus between this boy here and the source of the mischief there. So the boy was removed. And then Mother was sitting with Sri Aurobindo, and she wanted to know. So she said, she concentrated, and she sent a little call. Immediately, 3 small beings appeared before her, frightened. And Mother saw that these were some very elemental beings who could do only one work at a time and then be dissolved. They had no real individuality. So Mother said, why are you doing this? Of course, in their own language. So they said, but we are compelled to do. We have no option. Then Mother laughed and told him, all right, you can go, but don't do this again. Then they turned back and he said, can't we do anything for you? Mother laughed. She said, all right, what will you do? Get me some roses. He said, we can't do that. We are not meant to do that. What can you do? We can only bring throw stones. Then Mother told him, don't do this again, don't come here, and sent them away. So this is a remarkable incident. which Sri Aurobindo also has told in his own words about how physical science cannot explain certain incidents, certain happenings like materialization, dematerialization, and they are facts of experience. This is a very notable incident in December 1921. Then we have seen how they were shifted to Library House, where at present there is the reception room, prosperity room upstairs, and there Sri Aurobindo and mother were staying. And they used to have meditations around about 4:30 in the afternoon, after which there would be some evening, a few people would sit. They were all sitting in the chairs, and Sri Aurobindo would sit behind the table, and they would ask any question. And afterwards, in the evening, the youngsters will go for football, and that was the way every day. But in November 1926, it was noticed that this period of meditation, the starting of meditation, was getting later and later. There was an intense pressure in the atmosphere, and everybody felt, though nobody spoke, that something was going to happen. Something was going to happen. Some light, some power, some force from above is going to break in. That was the feeling. And mother records that for 2-3 days, around the 20th of November, she was seeing Krishna hovering round Sri Aurobindo. She was noting it. Then one day she saw him entering into Sri Aurobindo. So at that moment, she went and told Sri Aurobindo, this and such a thing has happened. He just nodded and went on with his work. Obviously, he did not attach overmuch importance. It was important. That day, in the evening, mother sent word to all the people who had gone on the sea beach, who had gone for play, who were elsewhere, and called them. And by 6 o'clock, all of them came back. There were about 24 people. And when they went upstairs, they found at the middle door, there was a curtain showing 3 dragons, each biting the tail of another, that is connecting itself with another. And in front, on the table, a new cloth had been put, and Sri Aurobindo's chair was there. And they all came and sat. Later it was learned that the significance of this curtain dragon was that of the Chinese prophecy. When the 3 dragons, representing the 3 planes, physical, vital and mental, joined together, a new light, a new world would be born. New light would manifest. So all of them sat. Then it appears there was a tick, the door. Sri Aurobindo was standing. Just behind him was mother. Mother showed to Sri Aurobindo, go ahead. But Sri Aurobindo stood there and signed to mother to go. So mother came first. Then Sri Aurobindo came, sat on his chair. Mother sat to his right on a lower stool. And one by one, they received those, each one was present. And as mother blessed each person who bowed down, Sri Aurobindo lifted his hand as if he was also blessing. And it was a kind of joint blessing. At the end, he withdrew, and when both Sri Aurobindo and mother withdrew, Datta, that is the lady of whom I spoke to you, she suddenly got inspired and she started exclaiming. Champaklal records, Krishna, the Lord, has come. He has ended the hell of suffering. He has conquered pain. He has conquered death. He has conquered all. He has descended tonight, bringing immortality and bliss. That was an epoch-making day, which Sri Aurobindo explains. The 24th of November was the descent of Krishna into the physical. Krishna is not the supramental light. The descent of Krishna would mean the descent of the overmind Godhead preparing, though not itself actually, the descent of supermind and Ananda. Krishna is the Anandamaya. He supports the evolution through the overmind, leading it towards his Ananda. And that was the day when Sri Aurobindo is said to have retired from external activity and signified that thereafter all would receive his help only through the mother, and they were to deal with him through her. It appears it was a total surprise to mother. She had not expected that day to end this way, that he would totally withdraw and entrust everything to her. And that marks the beginning of a new phase in her life, the growth of the ashram and everything. And this also closes one chapter, what I call the early chapter of her life. And that is where I propose to stop on this subject. The next further history is bound up with the ashram and things which are outside my immediate purview. And then the question comes, what are we going to do from next Sunday? I have thought that we could take up canto-wise a study of Savitri, giving an outline and the highlights in each canto with necessary background explanations, but not reading the text. We won't have the book in our hands, but to have an idea of the development, how he has presented, how he has developed, canto by canto. It is quite a long time since we closed our study on Savitri, and I think we can resume in this form. It won't be textual, but it will be more concentrated on the development of the theme and the implications. So that is what we shall do from next Sunday. First canto. First I will give a kind of a background and then start with the first canto. But for almost it will be page by page. But we won't take up the text. It will be a kind of prose survey of Savitri. We have done line by line before.